Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
What's going on out there? It's March 27th. And I'm Frank Curzio, it's the Wall Street Unplugged podcast to break the headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. So in today's show, I'll talk about Sam Bankman-Fried and how many years he should get because he's getting sentenced tomorrow. I'm going to talk about Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, which was a terrible tragedy. And man, I am very, very tired since our AI event last night, which was titled The AI Story Nobody's Telling, lasted close to 2.5 hours. 2 of those hours was from the live Q&A. Lots and lots of questions. Also getting lots and lots of new signups to our new Curzio AI product, which I knew would happen if they watch his presentation, since it's something different than anything else that you're hearing out there in terms of the stocks that are going to benefit. If you couldn't make it, which I know it's tough for a lot of people, I'll tell you exactly how to watch the replay. But first, let's start with something I don't want to start with, is my NCAA Final Four picks, which I deserve to eat crow. FrankCurzioResearch.com. Keep it coming in. I deserve it. It's all me. I'm the one who said no number 1 seeds. I just had one number 2 seed, and yet this is the first time, I think in 5 years, or the 5th time in NCAA history, I'm pretty sure that's right, where all the number 1 seeds and number 2 seeds have made it to the Sweet 16. I had Kentucky winning it all, which lost in one of the biggest upsets ever to Oakland, which is insane when I watched that game. I did say when I had that special, and I posted it as a separate podcast, my NCAA picks, 15 minutes, going through all the brackets, watch more college basketball than I ever have. But one thing I did say is make sure you have someone that doesn't know about college basketball to fill out the brackets, because chances are they're doing very, very well. And when you saw Kentucky play, you look at, Charles Barkley is even an Auburn alum and had Kentucky go into the finals. They're in the same division. If you watch Kentucky play, they were amazing. If you saw that game, it was disgrace. I mean, even from a coaching level, they didn't know what they were doing late in the game. There's 2 or 3 guys who are fantastic all year who are actually scared to even dribble the ball. And you can't take away from the other team, who's at Golke in Oakland, who hit 10 3-pointers, which if I was a coach, that would never, ever happen. This isn't the Steph Curry guy. This isn't a guy that's going to blow by you. He's not a guy that's going to blow by and pass it. He just shoots. That's it. And the fact that they couldn't come out and come off picks, kept going under the picks, was just amazing to me. Calipari looked lost there. But that's on me. And I also had them beating Auburn in the finals, who also lost. Although I would say arguably their best player got kicked out very, very quickly with stupid elbow. Statistically, you may not say, well, he's the best player on the team and athletically, but this is like the Draymond Green of that team. And if you take Draymond Green off of the Warriors, you see how much that team declines because of all the intangibles he does and all the picks and all the passes and all the assists. This is a guy that scored more than 10 points, had, I think, 3 or 4, led the team in assists, had lots of rebounds, and you took him out of the equation. Auburn still should have won that game, and they didn't, which is crazy. But it's all chalk now. Everything's cool. Some great, great games coming up. And I have to tell you, when I was watching the Kentucky game, I was flipping out. I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's nuts. And when it came to 3 minutes left, I was kind of hoping that they would lose. And hopefully it doesn't mean like people lost a lot of money in their brackets or anything if they listen to me. But that's how much I love college basketball. I mean, the story behind that and what happens to Oakland, what happens to the kid Golke, which his teammates are making fun of him because he's 25 years old because of the new rules in college basketball. You can play at like 5 to 6 years, right, in college now. And he's 25 playing against 18 years old, which is fine. They were making fun of him, saying all the guys that Kentucky just beat are going to be playing in the pros, and you're going to be an insurance salesman. And they were making fun of him, saying, like a new neighbor, State Farm is there. His team was making it. It's just you can't make up those stories. You just can't. And where do you see this in any other sport where a team like Oakland has a shot? Where do you see that? I mean, it's incredible. And I'm like, man, and the storyline that was going to be is just great. And they played great. They should have won. They should have won the second round. They had the ball last, and That's a good coach, and he didn't design a good play. How do you not get a shot up with 11 seconds left having the ball? After coming back and tying the game 11 seconds, you don't get a shot up? Come on. You got to be better than that as a coach. A lot of terrible coaching I've seen so far, but great games coming up. So I love college basketball so much, especially this time at the tournament. So I took my daughter to go see Kansas, and they won a couple of years ago in New Orleans. It was just unbelievable experience for me. But you have Houston and Duke, which is going to be an amazing game. Duke's been playing fantastic. UConn, San Diego State. Don't sleep on San Diego State. I know UConn looks untouchable. San Diego State is one of the best defensive teams in the country. Tennessee, Creighton's going to be a great game. Creighton's a great team. You probably don't know that. I'm familiar with the Big East. And the best game by far is going to be Illinois and Iowa State. These are both teams that are very, very capable of winning it all. And whoever wins that game is going to get Connecticut next round. That's a championship game you are going to see in the Elite Eight. Usually don't see that often. So it should be a lot of fun. My fault. I was getting ripped apart. I was answering emails and saying, you're right. And people making fun. You should make fun of me. I own my calls, and maybe it's the football has transferred into basketball, college basketball. I used to be better at college basketball. You guys know I'm terrible at picking the Super Bowl, but my apologies for those picks. And again, it was probably better if you didn't watch it, because it's hard to pick 3 of those number 1 seeds who all had terrible games going in and lost to terrible teams. I mean, Purdue lost, and Purdue looks good, by the way, right? Purdue looks good. That second half was great last week in their win. But Purdue lost to Wisconsin, which is the horrible team. Like I told you, Michigan State shouldn't have been there. They won that first game. I wish it was Mississippi State, but then got annihilated by North Carolina. Their record, they shouldn't have been there. And I'm happy that they won, and seeing Izzo in a tournament's great, but you could see why. That team looked, oh my God, they're going to beat North Carolina, and they get, annihilated. That's the way they played all year. They play a great game, and they play 2 or 3 bad games. Virginia make it was an absolute disgrace. Watching that team play, I'd rather, man, I don't even know. It was terrible. But, going into the tournament, it's going to be fantastic. Next week and going is going to be amazing. And this is just the greatest sport. It's the greatest sport ever. It really is. So exciting times, really good. My apologies for those bad picks. Again, I got a lot of shit, and I should be getting shit. You guys should be emailing me. I always own up, when I'm wrong on things. So I apologize, but enjoy the tournament. It's fantastic. And hopefully, if you win chalk, it's great. Because like I said, Purdue lost to Wisconsin. It was terrible. You had North Carolina lose to North Carolina State, which, by the way, that's a fascinating team to me. I mean, they played 5 games in 5 days. They barely got any rest. They come in, and they win another 2. I mean, the momentum that team is riding right now, I do not want to play North Carolina State. I do not want to play that team. So North Carolina State is actually going to play Marquette. And Marquette, that second half of the Marquette game was great. They were down, and Marquette's a really, really good team in the Big East. But it should be a lot of fun, and hopefully you enjoy, and my fault on those picks. Now, last night, we had a special event titled The AI Story Nobody is Telling. And it was a good title because nobody is telling it. And that's why people stayed on. Man, 2.5 hours? We had hundreds of people on, just answering questions. And the Q&A, we did a live Q&A, and I'm having a beer and hanging out. You see me, and Daniel's feeding me the questions, and you had the opportunity to go in and ask questions. And man, the questions are really great. And I think we surprised a lot of people. We have lots of signups to our new Curzio AI newsletter. We covered a lot of topics in this, and you could watch the replay. Go to curzioai.com. Put your email in there. We'll send it to you, and you can watch it again. And the Q&A lasted a long time. You don't have to watch the whole Q&A. It was good, though. I mean, the questions are really good and detailed, but we covered a lot of things that you're not going to see being covered anyplace else, where people are looking for AI-specific companies. The companies that are going to benefit, these smaller names for the first time ever, small companies can be on par with large companies because of AI. And I explain exactly why. That was never the case. You couldn't compete with them. And why is that a big deal? Because it's going to give you an opportunity to buy the next generations of NVIDIAs, Microsofts, and Amazons, which you can't do by buying Reddit at its IPO price. Which, how the F did Reddit not generate a profit in 20 years during the biggest e-commerce boom in the world? I mean, through every single trend, social media, how do you not generate a profit? Just tells you how terrible that company is. It can go higher. You could see, again, we're at all-time highs in the market, hardly any IPOs, and I get the excitement. I think anything coming out at IPO right now is going to go higher. That's fine. But just when I look in the hood in that company, how in the hell is that company 20 years? You couldn't make a profit. You just pay your CEO right before you go public $190 million pay package. Just amazing. But a lot of these companies at IPO right now, they IPO at multi-billion-dollar valuations, like the Reddits, like the Airbnbs, like the Coinbase. I mean, Coinbase is up, right? It's up tremendously. It's still trading probably 30%, 25, 30% below its highs. I mean, after the IPO, it surged and then it crashed. Crashed to what, $40, $45? I don't know where it is today, the 200 level or whatever, a little bit higher than that. It was well over 300. But you don't get a chance to buy these small caps like you used to and then hold them. And if things work out and they become the next large caps, you make a fortune because they're already coming out as large caps at 20, 30, 50 times sales. AI changes that landscape, but you have to go in. I show you in this presentation exactly how to find these. I'm going to do all the work. All you got to do is buy the stock. But you're going to see I went through the work that I do. And I think that really amazed people because they were like, holy shit. Because I showed them numbers. It wasn't a numbers presentation. Believe me, I'm not going to bore you and tell you, well, look at all these numbers and EBITDA and stuff. I just highlighted a couple examples about Meta, about Klarna, what companies that have been using AI for the past 2 years compared to companies saying they're going to use AI, which is only 6% of businesses plan on using AI over the next year. Crazy. Everybody says they're in AI. Everyone says they're using it. But the companies that I'm highlighting have been using it, and you're seeing the results in their financials that are blowing away expectations. And they're going to be able to take market share from the major players. You don't need teams of 50 people in marketing and social media presence and all this stuff. All this stuff could be done through AI. Highlight how many jobs it's going to take, and people say, well, it's not going to take a lot of jobs. You're crazy. I mean, Goldman Sachs just came out and said it's going to take 300 million jobs. 300 million jobs. To the point where it was like, how many freaking full-time jobs do we have? If you look at the U.S., I think it's about 120. Globally, they say half the population, 70% of the population. I made it half the population of 3 billion. 300 million jobs going to be replaced, and you might be thinking that's crazy. After you watch this presentation, you're going to know why. Because one chart, if you don't know what AGI is, artificial general intelligence, learn that term. Okay, that's when machines, that's the level that they surpass human intelligence. And the chart I brought up is a chart that if you're watching this on YouTube, and this is from ARK Investment. Now, I just want to put this in perspective. Okay, because people think this is in a bubble. I highlighted why it's not in a bubble, why some stocks are in a bubble, definitely. But why we're so early and how this trend is in infancy. And after you watch the presentation, you're going to know exactly why. Because I go over the crazy forecasts, the 17 trillion in GDP it's going to add and all this craziness. It said that I've never seen an industry, because I've looked at so many crazy forecasts and most of them are bullshit, especially when it comes to smaller companies and things that I see. A lot of them are bullshit. They never meet up to their expectations. We're going to generate 10 million the first year and 30 million and $80 million the third year. And I'm like, they're not even generating anything right now. And it's funny, but AI is one of the industries where I've seen forecasts that have immediately been blown away. Immediately. And one of them is this chart that I'm showing you right now. And this is AGI. So in 2019, this is when ChatGPT was released. They said that we are 80 years in 2019, 80 years away from AGI. By 2020, that was reduced to 50 years. 2021, that was ChatGPT GPT-3 now. Now we're into 4, right? But in 2021, 34 years. 2022, that's when Google started getting into it. 2022 is 18 years, and we have 2023 now. We are 8 years away. Okay, this is supposed to be 80 years 5 years ago. Already we're 8 years away. Based on that curve, so if that era continues, we're looking at AGI or machines passing human intelligence within 2 years. If you think that's crazy, listen to what Elon Musk just said, because he thinks it's going to happen next year. When that happens, holy shit, that's the moment. That's the moment when humans, you're going to have these machines more intelligent than humans, having 3 of you performing numerous tasks, tons of different things that could be spit out immediately. In our business, in terms of content creation is huge, right? So with content creation, the content that we could create, think of this podcast. Okay, I'm talking about AI. I'm going to talk about Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm talking about, Baltimore, right? And this is in a podcast. You can go through the transcripts. Now we have things that could print 3-4 summaries and articles that we could put on our site on each one of these topics, which, as you know, people listen to this podcast are extremely thorough. Then we throw our podcasts into different systems and use these plugins. Again, I'm showing you, I'm testing these things on two different things. I tested the Sora. I don't know if you saw Sora recently. Holy cow. I mean, Sora's incredible. That's OpenAI Sora, text to video. They just had the first short video that they made. Good luck in Hollywood. Good luck. I know you guys signed an agreement and you think you're protected. Good luck. There's a reason why OpenAI and the people behind Saw are meeting with all Hollywood studios now because you're not going to need all this stuff. So what does AI do? It's going to reduce your cost dramatically while increasing your sales and profits, which is the holy grail of every business in the world. How do I make the most money by spending the least amount of money? Right? Well, you're going to make the most money. How do I increase sales? So if you could increase your productivity and lower your costs, you know what that does with businesses? I've seen it because when companies cut costs, it takes like 2 years and then they'll get everything, effectuated. They fire fast and then, they'll hire slow. I've seen this business models all the time. But providing examples of what you saw with Meta is insane. What we saw at Meta in 2022 to 2023, firing 13% of their workforce, lowering CapEx by $4 billion, which is the money you spend to grow your business, and able to increase sales dramatically. Profits went from $8 to $14. Are you kidding me? And why do you think, for the first time in history, at least since I've been doing this, 30 years, have you ever seen companies with the market at its all-time high laying off as many employees? Forget about the unemployment rate. A lot of it has to do with services and restaurants and little stores and stuff. Big tech is laying off like crazy, yet their profits are surging. That's AI, guys. The company's using it and been using it for 2 years you don't know about because they don't have an AI division. They're just using this new technology and different softwares. It's going to provide inference, which is a term you should understand very, very well, which is how I can have all this data and what's going to tell me what to do and predict. And that's what NVIDIA is doing. The speed at which this is happening is incredible. I mean, everyone that spending, 150,000 chips, Meta and Microsoft are buying. And this is the H100 chip, which costs $30,000. Now, NVIDIA, everyone's trying to catch up to the H100. NVIDIA is starting to ship the H200, and their presentation was on that Blackwell chip, which was, a week or two ago with Jensen, the CEO. And we're talking about, in 2021, a chip where right now, in 2023, is 18 times faster, and we're going to see double that with the new Blackwell chips in 2025. That's why everyone's still light years behind NVIDIA. But this isn't NVIDIA. This presentation wasn't by Meta. It's talking about the companies that are able to use AI where they can compete with the big boys and take market share for the first time. They're going to have the resources to do it. And you don't have to know code. There's so many add-ons and different things. Again, with all podcasts and the content, I could throw this podcast into a system that we're using, and it provides 10 shorts that we're now posting. If you notice that Frank Curzio, go to our Twitter file, my Twitter handle. And you're going to see so many more posts where some people, I don't have a lot of time. You guys know how hard I work. I do all these newsletters. You see me on these podcasts. Now, a lot of this stuff, we're taking 1-minute clips, things that you would see with Joe Rogan and all these, podcasts, Lex Fridman. It's now we can get these shorts, and immediately they're going to put hashtags on there. They're going to see what's trending all automatically. That could do in seconds, stuff that we couldn't do before. Now we're getting out content, which we've always had great content. I felt that. You could see us, Daniel and I, doing a lot of the work behind the scenes. I mean, really covering this stuff in depth and give you great ideas. It's just a matter of how do we get this out to an audience when the only thing they see is this stock's going to go up 50,000% tomorrow. I have an AI system that predicts stocks, and tomorrow this is, a lot of bullshit out there. This guy's the legendary expert, and you try to find anything on Google, he doesn't exist. That's what you're competing against. But now we don't have to say anything. Now we show you. And that's the difference with AI. I mean, you look at this presentation, it's really, really cool. You can go to Curzio, AI.com, and great attendance. I really appreciate everyone that listened. Again, we 2.5 hours in total. 2 hours was the Q&A. We also launched our Curzio AI newsletter, special discount, things like that. It's really cool. So a lot of people sign up to that, which I wasn't surprised given after they saw the presentation and the names that, we talked about, and seeing an understanding of where this is going and why I'm going to invest 30% of my capital that goes into stocks over the next year is going to be in AI long-term. It's going to be in AI. It's going to be in companies that no one's really talking about. You're not going to find them on any screens or radars or anything on CNBC. And that's why I wanted to have this special web event, which again is live, and I love doing live. It's really fun, a lot of fun. It's cool. Again, just daylight drinking beers and stuff like that. But AI members, it included 2 small cap picks that I just mentioned a little bit there. Obviously, I didn't give them away. AI names to avoid. A lot of these you probably have in your portfolio. I talked about the ones that are in a bubble as well. And there are some that are in a bubble, but the industry is not in a bubble. The valuations are not in a bubble. Bubbles are based on where, these high expectations of something's going to happen. Look at the amount of money, which I showed in this presentation of how much NVIDIA is generating right now. Because I said, here's the forecast, here's where we are now, and here's where we're going. That's how I formatted it. And when you see here where we are now, in terms of the amount of money that companies are spending and making in AI, this isn't a bubble. And we had $6.5 billion cumulative losses of 199 internet stocks when Morgan Stanley analyzed those 199 internet companies at the top of the dot-com crash. $6.5 billion of combined losses between those companies. You're not seeing that now. Okay, NVIDIA is actually cheaper now than it was any time over the past 3 years because their earnings are growing faster than the stock price. So if you're hearing, oh, it's going parabolic, it's okay if you go parabolic. What's scary is that we're looking at traders that just focus on the price. They don't look at the fundamentals. When you're seeing the earnings in Supermicro, in this company as well, and a good example of, what AI companies are coming, look at Micron out of nowhere. Holy shit. Look at Dell out of nowhere. They weren't an AI play. Now they're an AI play because they're getting it right because they've been doing this. And look, 20, 30% Micron's up since they reported last week. Look where Dell is. Hewlett-Packard came back pretty well too. So these companies, you're going to hear more and more companies. They're not going to say, well, AI, but they're going to be using this technology throughout all their divisions, which is going to increase productivity tremendously. And the two names that we have in the portfolio are seeing that because they've been using it while everyone and all their competitors are saying, we're getting into AI. They're raising money to buy AI companies. These guys, one of them, a healthcare company, has 160 people just in their AI division. Just in their AI division. Starting to sign big contracts with some of the largest pharmaceutical companies for drug discovery because they're providing a cheaper way of doing this and a faster way of doing this, which is worth billions and billions and billions of dollars to healthcare companies, right? In 13 and a half years, it takes to get a drug through the whole entire process. 13 and a half years. You have a 20-year patent. Imagine if you could shrink that to 8 years. What does that do to the bottom line for big healthcare companies? What happens if you shorten, not just shorten, but those costs of $2 billion to bring a drug to market go to $300-400 million? How many more drugs with all these millions of compounds, tens of millions of compounds these guys have in their libraries? Now you're getting more shots on goal, right? Which is a great thing. More drug discovery, which we need in so many different areas. This is the exciting thing about AI. It's a lot of fun. You get that special report, the AI picks, the special report, Curzio AI, and also my interview one-on-one with Brad Erickson, who is the director of AI at the Mayo Clinic. Unbelievable when you listen to this guy. That's going to be available to subscribers as well. But thank you so much for attending. Again, you want more information on a newsletter. If you want to watch that presentation free, you have to watch 2.5 hours of it, but you could, it's around a 25-minute presentation, which you need to watch. All this is for free. And then the Q&A, you're going to hear lots and lots of great questions. They were great questions. No bullshit questions. Really, really cool stuff. And thank you for everyone attending, but I am tired this morning. Let's move on to Sam Bankman-Fried. So getting sentenced tomorrow, there's a founder of FTX who was responsible for leveraging customers' assets without their knowledge and then losing a lot of the money. This forced FTX into bankruptcy. Now, the max sentence is, I think, 110 years. He could get as little as 5. Most believe he's going to get 20 or 30. If that's the case, I think he's going to be out in 7 or maybe even 5. You say, why? This guy's a scumbag. This guy's crazy. It's because with FTX, customers and creditors are expected to be made whole or get paid in full, which I think is a joke. Not that they're getting paid in full. It's wonderful they're getting paid in full. But the amount of money that this company is sitting on is insane now that crypto is taken off. But you look at this case, which I did research on, and it just leads you to believe that the government was lying when it said FTX had $8 billion in losses. When in fact, okay, $8 billion in losses, but it's a temporary shortfall in cash and other liquid assets needed to cover the redemptions. They didn't go into their illiquid assets. I mean, a good example is Donald Trump putting up the bond. I mean, it would be easy for him, and it got lowered for the $400 million, which is insane. I think everybody knows that. But the $400 million bond, it's almost impossible to get. And he has easily covering that in real estate assets, but they're asking him to sell those real estate assets, which is a totally different story. But when you look at FTX, I mean, easily had enough total assets to cover these redemptions. Government didn't want to know. And I know it's something that's not reported in the media. Nobody knew that. It was a total loss. There's a company invested in Anthropic. That's Claude 3. That's a faster program and a better program right now than OpenAI's Chat GPT-4. And that's a fact. It's a better program. It's faster. It's more accurate. It gets every comparison in terms of search, in terms of math, in terms of how quick. It's better. Doesn't have as many subscribers. Probably only be valued at $30-40 billion right now. They have a big stake in it. They just sold some of it. OpenAI is probably valued at $100 billion plus. But Anthropic is one of 400 plus private investments FTX made. 400 private investments. And where do you think those private investments were? They were in cryptos. 1,300 tokens, which weren't that liquid. So you couldn't just sell this stuff without crashing the market, especially when they went bankrupt, which is what? November 2022, I think? And Bitcoin was 16,000 then. It's 70,000 right now. It makes you think if FTX were a bunch of assholes, this guy wasn't an asshole, did the right thing, didn't illegally leverage all the clients' money and throw it into another fund. This is a company that's going to be valued at over $100 billion right now. And at its peak, it was $32 billion when Bitcoin was 60,000. Now it's 70,000. You say maybe it's valued a little bit more. No, look what's taking place. Look at all the ETF launches. Look at all the institutions looking to get in. I mean, how many of these funds are able to take custody? Hardly any. FTX is the leader. They're the biggest. They were the Apple of the industry. But all the institutional money coming in, which could end up to be $1 trillion in 10 years, 30 trillion of available monies now, for the first time, having easy access to Bitcoin. And then you're going to see even more access as Ethereum ETFs get approved, when? 6 months from now? Definitely this year. What do you think is going to happen after they get approved? You're going to have all these structured 2 times or 3 times. You're going to have managed ETFs. But just the amount of flows going into these things, you're going to see a ton of them come out over the next 2 years. And they're going to be a big beneficiary of the money because there's going to be institutions that are now, you're going to see companies with, Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Now that the accounting rules changed, it's not just going to be MicroStrategy, which we traded around the past 3 weeks, unbelievably. I think we made 80% in a week or two in Dollar Stock Club. That's Wall Street Unplugged Premium, right? Which I do Daniel every Thursday. And then we sold it. Everybody was pissed. And then it came down and started going up again. And we added it again, I think, a week after we sold it. And then Bitcoin went a lot higher. So we're doing very, very well in terms of that portfolio, which is, in Dollar Stock Club, we take one idea out of, a lot of the ideas we mentioned in Wall Street Unplugged Premium, and we put in Dollar Stock Club every week. So you have a trading newsletter that we charge. It's $1 to try that service. You can go to, CurzioResearch.com. But it's $1 just to try it, and after that, it's $10 a month. And that's a trading newsletter where I could tell you most trading newsletters in our industry trade for, they're sold at $1,000, most $1,500 plus a year. This is $10 a month. If you don't like it, you cancel. Trust me, you're going to like it. The information you get there and the trades and that portfolio has been on fire, which is awesome. But getting back to Sam Bankman-Fried. And that company could have been huge, massive, massive, massive. Because what do you have? You have Coinbase, Galaxy Digital. There's not a lot out there. In terms of taking custody, and Robinhood is now providing, if you move your funds over, you get a 3% match in your 401k or something. It's just, and you have international brokers, which is another one, outside of crypto, but they have, their interest rates are 4.5%. I moved my mom's account there compared to a lot of these other accounts. So you're seeing a lot of crazy stuff happen within the brokerage firms to get more assets over. But, these guys would have been right in the middle of all this FTX if they just did it right. Transparent. And the Apple of the crypto industry now gone. But I'm guessing that tomorrow that sentencing is going to be probably 40 years. The big number, and people are going to be like, hey, and cheer it, even though they're all going to get their money back. And they should be getting a 20% premium I don't know where all the money that's being made right now, where that's going. It's just interesting. I like to see that. Is that going right to the government again? I guess. Maybe they'll take that, which is supposedly taxpayers' money, and invest it in Intel. Kidding me? That's where we're investing my tax dollars in Intel. Are you nuts? At the S&P 500, there's probably 497 stocks that are better investments than Intel. Please. Why? Why are we doing that for? Anyway. But after the sentencing in 40 years, I think he's going to be out in less than 7. And the political power this guy has is insane after the massive donations he made. If I was a politician, I would use every resource possible, which they have tons of resources, to make sure this guy doesn't write a book about these donations, because that money wasn't given back by many of them. And as soon as there was investigations on it, immediately got shot down. You don't see it being reported in media or anything, but just, the donations that this guy made were massive. And you see reports, well, okay, it's political as hell. People say, well, if you look at the media, you're going to think it was the same amount of money he gave to Republicans as Democrats, which is totally insane when you look at the actual facts. But even when you question Maxine Waters and all, just all these people, they're like, no, they didn't give the money back. I mean, the book that this guy could write on politicians is incredible. It's incredible. They all supported him. The whole entire time. And he was smart. That's what you want to do. When you're that big, you're a big company, you got to get into politics. Either way, whoever's going to win, you got to be donating, because that's a very, very big thing. Lobbying the right, bribing the right party that's going to be in. So, again, that money was never given back by wonderful and trustworthy politicians. So to keep that shut, I'm sure it's going to be 7 years anyway, since people are going to be made whole again. But expect a 30, 40 years, because, you don't want people being really, really pissed off. And I think 30, 40 years, people will be satisfied with it. And you really don't know when this stuff happens. Just like, when he's out in 7, it's not a big deal. 3 years from now, this isn't going to be a story. It's not going to be a story anymore. It's a little bit of a story now. Tomorrow will be a story. Pretty big story. Let's get to Baltimore real quick with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Huge cargo ship crash into it. You can see that video anyplace. The first thing I want to say is condolences to the families. There's 6 missing, presumed dead. I think they stopped the search. They weren't able to stop the traffic because they called before and said they lost control of the boat. And again, there's a lot of conspiracy theories and all this bullshit going on. Just doing research on this, it really is incredible when you see the ports, the supply chains, what goes on. And I know he's golfing with the captain of one of these ships who goes to China all the time. He'll be gone for a while and comes back. And I'd love to talk to him now and get in touch. I haven't talked to him for a couple months. But just doing the research and listening to some of these people, I mean, it's sad what happened. I want to say first thing is our infrastructure that bad? Maybe it's me. I don't know about engineering, but you crashed into a certain part of the bridge and the entire bridge goes down. I mean, what happens if that's like the Tapestry Bridge, bridges that are massively, massively long? You would think a piece of the bridge comes down. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's just there's so much leverage and so much weight, the whole thing's going to come down. I don't know. But man, that thing just came down immediately, the whole entire thing. And I don't know. Maybe that could be, no matter what happens and what kind of infrastructure we had, I'm sure, some of that bridge would have came down with that vessel hitting it that hard. But I don't know. I was just surprised. And maybe it's me, but again, we all know about our bridges and tunnels and water pipes and infrastructure and how much money needs to really, how old these systems are. And you could see that through so many different reports. We have infrastructure bill out there. Hopefully, we get a lot of money put towards this stuff. I don't think that would have avoided anything really. I was just surprised to see that. But second of all, I want to talk about the port itself. Almost all cargo and trucks that transport through that port use this bridge. So this is the 9th biggest port in the world. 800 billion of cargo went through the port last year. 80 billion of cargo went through that port last year. 1.3 million trucks cross that bridge every year. So 3,500 a day. Direct impacts, sugar. That's major within this port. I mean, you also had a Carnival, couple companies came out. Carnival said it's going to take a $10 million hit to EBITDA this quarter because of that. The supplies that come in. I think you're going to see a lot of that. The quarter is coming up. You might see good numbers for the quarters, and earnings season starts, I think, in a week. In probably 2 to 3 weeks, you'll really get into earnings season. But pay close attention because you're going to hear companies talk about this. Especially car companies. This is a number 1 port for vehicles. Handles shipments of 850,000 cars and lightweight trucks. So GM, Ford both came out and said they're going to have supply issues. Volkswagen, I think it's 100,000 of these cars. Volkswagen, you haven't heard that, but Volkswagen's going to, again, this is going to impact a lot of this stuff. We know what happens when you have supply chain concerns. Huge amount of coal also exported from this port, 2.5 million tons, making the second largest exporting port for coal. It's around 2% of total coal exports, but I didn't even know. Like, I love when you look under the hood and you find this shit out. We produce that much coal and we send it everywhere. I thought that was a big thing with climate change. No more coal. We can't. No more coal. And there's different levels of coal, and some's a little bit cleaner than others, and terrible, and meth coal and stuff like that. But really, we're sending out this. So I guess when we send it out and then it's used. We complain about China. Most of this is going to India. Complain about them. Oh, they're using coal, but we're actually like providing. It's like you're handing the gun and loading it, pointing at someone and loading the gun and just, hey, all you have to do is just tap that trigger and then you shoot somebody, right? We're doing everything except pulling that trigger a little bit. I just don't understand from the climate change part of how this makes sense. I mean, no coal here no matter what, but we're under this impression that by all these emission standards and lowering them, that it's going to result in a better outcome for climate change, which I love the fact that they changed the name of climate change. It was global warming, but now when it gets cold, now you could also say, okay, that's climate change, back and forth. And to see the stories that come out and just how, if we do all this, it's going to be better for Earth. The United States is not Earth. It's not the entire planet. And we're cutting back on our resources. Everyone else is increasing their resources. And that gives them a significant advantage right now. Not saying we go all in on coal and go crazy and stuff like that, but it's not like we're making that much of a difference if we produce 20% less coal and everyone else increases their coal production by 30%. It's the same thing. It's the same Earth. It's not like, hey, we got the spot over the U.S. and we're going to be fine when the rest of the world ends. It doesn't work like that. Which is crazy. Even with cars and EVs, you don't realize how much in terms of mining that you need, how much that hurts the environment for lithium, batteries. I mean, you're going through all that cobalt. It's insane. People don't talk about that. You're not allowed to talk about that. You get kicked off social media if you talk about that. If you question climate change, you get kicked off social media. Because climate change is an unlimited, it's a blank check to do whatever the hell you want. And it's a forever blank check to do whatever you want. It's the perfect scenario for a politician where don't worry about the facts, just say climate change. Convince all of our kids in school that, they're all going to die if we don't change this. We're all going to be underwater. It's going to be crazy. Instead of really focusing on the facts where, yes, there's things that we could do. Yes, I think most people believe that, they care about the planet. But not to the point where a plastic bottle, they don't even stand up anymore. Plastic bottle of water. A paper fucking straw. Are you kidding me? A paper straw? I mean, come on. It's getting crazy. I mean, I go through a washing machine like every 3 years because they got all these crazy parts and bells and whistles and all this stuff, not using as much water and stuff, and they all break. I remember I had the big washing machine, my whole house used to shake when I was in Queens, New York. We had that for like 25 years. Same freaking washing machine, the whole house. We went on the second floor. The whole house used to shake, but it worked forever. Now, forget it. All these emission standards and different things and forcing to do this and forcing to do that, it gets crazy. It gets crazy. If you have the people on one side going so far, on any side going so far over, it loses the credibility of the problem. I think that's what's happened. When you have I think I looked at 13,000 scientists that say that, how terrible everything is in terms of emissions and climate change. And then you have another 12,000 that say the opposite. How is that possible? Usually you have one or two outliers that say, no, based on my facts and my studies and my new study. You don't have that many. It just tells you that a lot of this is full of shit, and it is. And I've seen that personally up front with fracking. I've seen it personally up front when I went to go see Northern Dynasty's mine, Pebble Mine, in the middle of Alaska, when they said, it's going to hurt sockeye salmon and kill them all, which is 150 miles away because of the rivers that run through it. And if they develop this mine, which is the largest undeveloped copper and gold mine on the planet, they develop this, that's it. Salmon is done, and yet when I look, there's no rivers, there's nothing flowing through the property. I was laughing, and you have to take a 2 planes and a helicopter just to that area. Can't even drive to it, middle of Alaska, middle of nowhere, so nobody could see it. Everybody talks about it, but no one could see it. And when I saw it, I'm like, so this is all bullshit? He's like, 100%. I was like, oh my God. Like, I was naive. I was like, wow, I'm just reading this stuff saying like, oh my God, this company's crazy for trying to produce this thing because you're going to kill all the salmon and and the environment is terrible. And that's not even going to happen. It's fabricated. It's a complete lie. It's tons of money that goes on in Alaska. This is a personal agenda. And it's not, it's both Republicans and Democrats have both come out against this project. And I guarantee you 99.9% of the people that write about this have never been to that site. I've been to that site. And you realize shit like that. Like, oh my God, man, there's a huge agenda here. These guys are just fucking lying. That's the opportunity to make money for you guys. But I look at the coal angle. One angle I think that's not being talked about is gypsum. All right, this is used massively in construction, manufacture wallboards, drywall, make plaster and construction of homes, using fertilizer, also in the healthcare industry to treat burns, abscesses. But this is stuff that needs to be packed a certain way, handled a certain way. So when I see on TV right now, they're like, oh, well, they're just going to, right now we're hearing there's not going to be any supply disruption. They're going to reroute this to another port. That's bullshit. And every port has specialized in different products. In different products, my wife worked in this industry forever. Ports and going over, I think she handled like beef jerky. She handled like 10 different accounts. But I mean, the regulations behind every single thing, right? And the fact that this has to be handled and the laws are, it's different for every single product. Every single product. And it makes sense. Hazardous materials. Some are not hazardous materials. Some are food. There's all kind of and some ports don't have to worry about that and say, look, we're going to do, it's a bad example, but I'm going to exaggerate. Like, we'll do all food and we're going to do all cars. And we're going to, there's each port, they specialize in certain things. This one is number one in cars. Are other places set up for this? I don't know. Maybe. But I can tell you when it comes to different products, it's not as easy like, hey, you know what? Go to Jersey, go to New York, go to San Francisco, whatever, California, and we'll be fine. And then we'll just transport this back and forth. No. I mean, even the cost of doing that is crazy. But the U.S. imports over 65% of gypsum, which there's 47 companies that produce this stuff in the U.S., few publicly traded. Started looking into a few of these names because it makes sense. Probably easier and cheaper for them to increase production right now. Again, 65% is imported for some reason because it's probably a little bit cheaper. But now, if that's disrupted, these guys have an opportunity to produce a lot more and probably increase the price because it's going to be high demand. Because you're still seeing housing construction, take off. It's a lot of uses for this. And I'm going to cover some of these in Wall Street Unplugged Premium tomorrow with Daniel. You look at customers, each port has different customers. And this one, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Amazon, IKEA. I mean, just all the furniture companies out there. There's so many different companies that are going to be impacted. Ton of major retailers. So pay attention to earnings season. And the current quarter might be good, but you might see warnings because of delays. And most importantly, what is this going to lead to? And you're going to be able to have some good trades. Again, Dale and I talk about a few names that might be able to trade because of this. But the bigger point here is inflation. Inflation is on fire again. I don't know if you're paying attention. It is on fire. It's on fire, inflation. It's not like a temporary thing. I'm sure you're seeing it. Almost all my bills are starting to go back up again. Everything from electricity. Look at how much insurance has gone up just in the past few months. It's been going up. Auto insurance, health insurance, all this insurance going through the roof. So you're looking at food prices. I'm still seeing Chipotle, McDonald's. If you listen to their calls, look at McCormick just reported higher prices. Lululemon, higher prices, and they still, for the first time ever, I think they missed a quarter and the stock got hammered. This is not going to help when you have supply chain concerns. So what's the next move for the Fed? And I'm going to tell you, as crazy as it sounds, and I know it's an election year, so totally disagree with it, it might be a hike. The next move for the Fed. I know it sounds insane. It sounds crazy. Frank, you're out of your mind. Listen to the predictions of what we said about interest rates and how high they were going to go and how everybody was wrong. I didn't trade it the best way because I was under the assumption everyone said the market's going to go higher because interest rates are going to go low. The Fed's going to start cutting. And I'm like, the Fed's not going to start cutting, so we're probably going to see the market come down even further. That didn't happen because the government decided to spend trillions of dollars. I'd rather it the other way, where I was right on and making money off of it, than, especially at the beginning, being right on the thesis. But before you think this sounds crazy, Going to this year, we're expecting 6 rate cuts. Then it went down to 3. Now it's 1. Powell knows we're not going to get down to the 2% target, even though some guy on CNBC was like, we're at 2% if you strip out real estate, if you strip out this, if you strip out that. We're not at 2%. Our lowest level of inflation was October. It's much, much higher now. And the last 2 months, the PPI and CPI came in hotter than expected. And now we have this. Now we have economic data coming in. Consumer sentiment is higher. Leading economic indicators. Positive reading, first time in 2 years. Everyone's like, the economy is great. We're going to see more inflation. What's the Fed going to do? How could they cut? They can't. It's an election year, which is probably the reason why they won't raise. But they promised 2%. Powell just said, okay, it's not going to be 2% now. It might be 2 to 3%. 3% inflation is massive. Year over year. Massive. It's a 50% increase in inflation. On top of what? 20%, 25% over the last 3 years? And the prices we pay right now? The Cheesecake Factory with my daughter, it was $80 for 2 people. $80. $5 sodas. Holy shit. Now people are starting to tap their savings with interest rates staying high for longer. You've seen that. You've seen credit card delinquencies go higher and higher and higher. Even though, and 21, what's the rate at? 21%? But this month, coming up, when they report in April, they're going to be reporting March data. I mean, let's see where it is. It might come in line with expectations because they're probably going to be raised getting into that. But if this comes in hotter than expected, that's 3 months. That's not like, oh, well, let's see. That's temporary. This is 3 straight months of higher inflation. How could the Fed cut rates? They can't cut rates. The only reason why they wouldn't raise rates one more time to try to slow inflation is because it's an election year. We all know it's political. We all know it's political, 100%. I don't care what you say, or conspiracy. It's political on both sides. On both sides. It's political. But let's see what happens. Because this does not make it good for the Fed in terms of inflation, because this is going to lead to inflation right now. I mean, look at cars, look at autos, look at the parts, look at, Carnival. There's a lot of stuff that under the hood. And I think, watching CNBC and other places cover this story, and they're doing a good job, but they're all saying that this is not really a big deal. This is a big deal when you look under the hood. It's a big deal. It's not easy to say, oh, you know what? Just throw that to that port. I mean, what about all the trucking services? Think about all the trucking services, right? All logistics behind that, getting stuff to different places, the amount of costs. How much is it going to cost where, okay, I get off of Baltimore and I only have to drive to New York? What happens if I have to go to California and drive across the country in the cost? What happens if, what ports you're going to use? You might not be able to use a port that's close by because maybe they don't have the services or the logistics to handle some of the products, which again, they all have different standards and federal laws behind them of how to be handled. This is a bigger deal than they're making it. It's a bigger deal, guys. It's going to impact a lot of companies. I think there's a lot of good trades in here. Daniel and I will cover that tomorrow on Wall Street Unplugged Premium. So, guys, covered a lot today, even though I'm tired. But question, comments, I'm here for you, frankcurzioresearch.com. If you didn't get a chance to watch our event last night, you can watch the full replay at curzioai.com. Okay, definitely suggest you do that. Again, absolutely for free. You're going to be more educated on AI than probably 95% of the people that talk about it. And you're going to know exactly how to pick the next wave of AI stocks, which are small caps, mid caps that are off everyone's radar. You're not going to be able to find them through screens, and you'll find out why as soon as you get the presentation. It's really, really cool. I haven't seen anyone talking about this, and that's why I think people stayed on so long. Hundreds of people stayed on until 9:30 at night. It kind of sucks for me. I kind of liked it, answering the question, but I was actually running on fumes and stuff towards the end, but I want to be there for you guys and answer questions, which is really, really cool. So you can get a replay of that at curzioai.com. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, Wall Street Unplugged Premium. Love this episode of Wall Street Unplugged? I think you'll really love Wall Street Unplugged Premium. The Wall Street Unplugged Premium is my members-only podcast where I dive even deeper into this week's events. Well, I'll do even more than tell you what's moving these markets. I'll tell you specifically what moves you can make today. So this is going to be about trading. Put big money in your pocket right away due to the inconsistencies I see daily in the market. I'm talking about specific investment ideas I'm recommending and tracking each week that I believe will be impacted directly by everything I just talked about today. Plus, you're going to get the chance to go even further down the rabbit hole with me and my co-host, who's Daniel Creech, as we discuss which of these week's trends could turn into massive windfalls. Could the big trends that we see lurking on the horizon, also the news we're picking up from our network of insiders, which has gotten bigger and bigger thanks to you and so many people listening to this podcast in over 100 countries. And you get a chance to talk to me directly in my special Ask Me Anything Q&A session. All of that and a lot more, like premium interviews with world leaders in finance, technology, industry, and politics. This is all part of Wall Street Unplugged Premium. And becoming a member is super simple and super cheap. So head on over to WSUoffer.com to check it all out. Sign up today and you won't miss a thing. That's WSUoffer.com.
Wall Street Unplugged is produced by Curzio Research, one of the most respected financial media companies in the industry. The information presented on Wall Street Unplugged is the opinion of its host and guests. You should not base your investment decisions solely on this broadcast. Remember, it's your money and your responsibility.